Hello everyone, welcome to a special video. This is like a test run, and it's actually the second time that we're recording something like this. Say hello to Josh.
Hello.
Josh will be joining here us today just to talk a little bit of about Star Wars while we play Star Wars. And it's actually one of the best games of Star Wars, if I could say so myself.
Yeah, I like this game.
Yeah, it's really good. And even you start off already by playing as Darth Vader, choking people up. So it's a really good way to start a Star Wars game. Anyhow, we're not going. The cutscenes will play out, I believe. Josh Josh is the one playing the game, but as
I'm really bad at video games.
That's not actually that true.
I just need to warn everyone that I'm really bad at video games, and it's me playing, so don't hate on Cami.
Don't worry, they already they're used to me playing like crap. I'm always getting comments on Dragon Ball videos saying that.
Okay.
Well, anyhow, this is the second time that we're recording this, like I already mentioned it. The first time that we did, we had like 50 minutes of footage, and when I went to check everything out, for some reason, the audio from the microphone and the audio from the computer all got jumbled in a single audio track. So our voices were really low compared to the video game. So I
got a WhatsApp message that says, "My dude, I want to die."
True, that's what I said. Yeah, but we made a test before starting this. Everything is working okay as it should. Hopefully it will stay that way. And so we can start off by talking a little bit of Star Wars. Lots of these topics we already touched upon the first time that we talked about it, so it's not going to be the first time that we're talking about this, but a few of them I kind of wanted to talk about, especially talking about the prequel movies that I actually quite enjoy. And talking in the gym with Joshua about that, we got to the same conclusion that we do have a few similar views relating the prequel movies. So Josh, do you want to start off by talking about?
Yeah, so first of all, I like the prequels. That's important. The prequels are good movies. Well, they're good stories. I don't know if they're always good movies. Mm-hmm. And so Lucas sucks at dialogue, especially romance dialogue. He's just terrible at it. And in the original trilogy, he had people like his now ex-wife that were fixing the dialogue for him. We didn't have that in the prequels. But anyway, what Lucas is really good at... Boom! What Lucas is really good at are two things. One, world building, creating, this universe with all these interesting creatures and political systems, and plots. The plot of the prequels is this really classic human story that's told on two levels. On a personal level, it's the path to hell being paved with good intentions. It's how good people become evil with Anakin's story. And it's on a larger scale, the level of how democracies turn to tyrannies. Mm-hmm. And they mirror each other. It's the same process. I think the plot of the prequels is really, really good. And the worlds that it's created is really, really good. But then you have shit like sand.
True. That's one of the major things that I have with those movies, is that sometimes the dialogue can really... It doesn't really make a lot of sense, and it's just... It turns out to be funny and memey, and not deliver what I believe the original intentions were. They wanted to probably transmit a whole different idea, but the thing is, sometimes when you write dialogues like that, it just comes out as it's funny, and it looks like you didn't really pour the time needed to write something that was worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, also it suffered from, I think, rushed development. I watched the making of episode 1, and they were on a kind of tight schedule, from what I understand. The casting of Jake Lloyd was a mistake. It's not his fault, of course, but that wasn't great. Jar Jar could have been done a lot better.
That's actually one thing that we forgot to talk about last time, but it's a really good opportunity that we have currently. How do you feel about Jar Jar Binks?
Yeah, so, I mean, the Star Wars were always goofy movies. I recently rewatched the original trilogy, as I do, like, every half year, and C-3PO is a goofball. He's also annoying as hell. Like, he's an asshole, but he's funny.
Yeah.
And I think Jar Jar was supposed to be the C-3PO of the prequels, you know, the comic relief. But he didn't have anyone to play off of the way that C-3PO does. And also, I don't know, the execution with Jar Jar wasn't great. I think there are a lot of details why, but I don't know, I wasn't really happy with the Gungans.
I actually do remember reading this theory that Jar Jar Binks was going to turn out to be a Sith Lord or something like that. And I really find that funny, and in a way I would love that to happen.
That would have made it more interesting, because it would explain his, you know, extremely exaggerated bumbling idiocy.
And there's a few fighting scenes that he evades lots of attacks just perfectly.
Yeah.
And with those theories in mind, it kind of makes a whole lot of sense how he would be able to do those kinds of things.
Right. I mean, when you can explain the plot events, you know, people have heard of plot armor and stuff, but there's also a plot damage. The way that Jar Jar was fumbling around and managed to kill a bunch of droids. Yeah. But I want to talk about something new. We didn't talk about the prequels last time.
Tell me.
The Separatists were the good guys.
I do in a way understand that, but why would you say that?
Okay, so the Republic was crumbling. They had this classic problem of underrepresentation and with taxation of the Outer Rim systems. They weren't getting the protection of the core worlds, but they were still getting taxed. And so there was a real problem within the government of the Republic and its leadership. Things were too slow in the bureaucracy, you know, it wasn't an effective government. And so the Separatists, they were probably justified in what they wanted to do. They wanted to have representation within the government, and they were going to separate and form their own government if that wasn't going to happen. Why they were the quote-unquote bad guys is because Palpatine used them to weaken the Republic so that he could take over and form the Empire. I think that if Palpatine, you know, wasn't involved at all, the Separatists would have won. They would have created another government, and then that probably would have ended in negotiations between the Republic and this new government, and it probably would have been better. Not only that, they didn't use clones. Like, I don't know, it's an ethical question whether you're going to have people born into it.
Yeah.
They just used droids. They didn't even use living things.
Okay.
Mindless droids, mark you.
Yeah, actually, that was a thing that for me really it's distinct to the prequels, is that those droids, it's one of the very first things that I think about when I think about Star Wars. And that might be because since I'm a 90s kid, I wasn't
90s kids only.
I'm not really used to the originals. So the very first memories that I have from Star Wars is actually eating cereal and seeing in the back of the cereal boxes publicity for the movies that were in the cinemas back then, and it was the first movie actually. So I remember having, I think it was the first movie. I remember having Darth Maul and the kid Anakin back in the cereal box.
Right.
So those are the first memories that I have from Star Wars.
I see.
I wouldn't say that that's the reason why I like the prequels, but it might have to do with the fact that when I watched the prequels, I actually watched in chronological order the very first time that I saw Star Wars. So I saw the first three chronological movies and then passed into the original ones. And back then I actually remember thinking, oh man, I shouldn't have watched it in this order because now the quality is so crap that it actually is hurting my viewing experience.
I see. Yeah, and also, I mean, it ruins Darth Vader.
Yeah, that's true. But to be honest, I actually knew the spoilers before watching the movies because back then knowing that Anakin was Darth Vader is just, it was like the cool thing to know. Everyone knew that, and so it wasn't really a surprise to me. But I do remember playing the Game Boy Advance game, and I do remember playing the Anakin story mode that you could play as Anakin or Obi-Wan, and I do remember having that final scene with Anakin being turned into Darth Vader, all pixelated, you know, those pixel graphics from the Game Boy Advance era.
Right.
So yeah, that's the one thing that I really remember about that plot point.
So how old were you when you saw the prequels then, when you saw the first Star Wars movie?
Let me think about it. I do remember that I was kind of older, so I think it would be around 15 years old.
Oh,
which
okay.
is quite old, actually. I didn't see it as a kid, per se, so I did watch it when I was a bit older. And it was at a time of my life that I didn't really enjoy playing games or watching movies in their original quality. So, for example, if I was playing a Game Boy Advance game, I would stretch for it to fit my screen.
I see.
And that was actually it was applicable to console PS1 games, for example. I didn't really like to play by the original standards, so I do feel like that's in a way a reason that I didn't enjoy the original movies as much as I could, because I was a dumb kid and I couldn't appreciate them as they were meant to be seen.
I see. We had very different Star Wars experiences.
Yeah.
My mom was someone who skipped work to watch The Empire Strikes Back. Huge Star Wars nerd. And so I saw A New Hope before it was called that when I was 5.
Damn.
And then also when I was 5 I saw the other 2. And that was right before Episode 1 came out.
Mm-hmm.
So she had showed me them then so I could go watch Episode 1 in theaters with her.
Damn.
And then I saw Episode 1. So I also have nostalgia for them on like the deepest level.
Okay. I understand.
So I think that might influence why I like the prequels so much. I saw them when I was really little.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't know. I rewatch them regularly, and I stand by what I say about their story.
Yeah, I do really enjoy the story. Like Josh already mentioned, the biggest problem that those movies have, in my opinion, just like yours, is that the writing could have been done way better.
Yeah.
And the movies would have actually been way better and less memey than what it turned out to be in the end of the day.
And also CGI wasn't quite there yet. Lucas has always had this problem where, you know, he says, I have this vision and it needs to be exactly like this vision. The practical effects look really good.
Yeah.
I mean, they hold up way better than CGI does.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I believe that that's one of the major downfalls from the original movies, at least comparing to technology that gets old, and you get to notice that our eyes are so well trained for CGI nowadays that old CGI is even worse to our eyes than it was compared back in the day.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Back in the day, we'd probably say, oh, that's CGI, but it's really cool. It's really cool effects. But nowadays, you just look at those and you're like, this
cringy.
Yeah, it didn't age well at all.
However, you know, on the other hand, you have Yoda from The Empire Strikes Back, and he's a puppet, and he looks like a puppet, but it holds up better than CG Yoda does.
Yeah. And by the way, talking about Yoda puppet, what did they use in Episode 8?
They use a puppet.
That's a puppet, right? But it didn't feel like it had like some CGI effects around it.
Yeah, they made it glow and stuff.
Yeah, I think that was the thing that kind of I felt weird about.
Yeah, there's a lot to feel weird about Episode 8.
Yeah.
But actually, the way that they did Yoda was one of my favorite things about that movie. I like that they made him a puppet.
Okay.
Also, listen, games, listen. Close-ups of faces when you're at this level of CG is never going to hold up well.
True. Well, back in the day, it probably was something good to look at, but nowadays it's just so weird. I mean, Darth Vader looks good, but it's because his face is just basically a mask with a dark material associated to it, and it probably won't ever look bad compared to his face that has lots of more details, and those things really don't look as good nowadays. But still, this is actually a really solid Star Wars game all around, graphics-wise, gameplay-wise, and even story-wise. I love the fact that it originally actually was part of the canon, but then Disney came in and said no to Expanded Universe. That's actually one of the biggest losses that I see with the Disney buyout. But Josh here doesn't really like the Disney buyout.
No, yeah. Of course, the listeners or watchers don't know that we talked about this last time a lot. I'm not happy with the direction that Star Wars is going in general. Although, I really, really like Rogue One.
Oh,
that
yeah.
was a great movie.
But before going there, we were talking about the prequels. Let's take a different approach this time around. Let's talk about the order chronologically. So we're talking about the prequels. Do you have anything else that you want to add to the prequels talk?
Ewan McGregor is definitely the best part of the prequels. I think that Reddit agrees, but he's such a good actor, and I really want an Obi-Wan movie.
Oh, it would actually be really good to have an Obi-Wan movie.
Yeah.
Actually, I feel like you said, I actually think he's one of the best actors that those movies had, and you can see that he did try his best. Those scenes that are the most dramatic ones, you can look at his face and see that he's really into that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a top grade actor. He had just come off Trainspotting, and then he does a Phantom Menace. And he's very, very good. What else? I think that episode 2 and 3 look worse than 1.
Really? I've seen those movies a long time ago, so I don't really remember about those details.
So, like, specifically the lightsaber effects, they look way better. They did them a different way in episode 1.
Okay.
They had more practical effects in episode 1 than 2 and 3.
Let's hope so. I'm sick of training.
Let's see. By far the weakest is 2.
What have you done to my ship?
Okay.
Of the prequels. What other opinions do I have? Stop hating on Hayden Christensen. He did well with what he could.
Okay, that's true. I wouldn't say that you're wrong about that. When you're given some weird lines and you need to do those weird lines, well, it's not really the actor's fault, is it?
Yeah, I mean, he was directed to be a whiny teenager, and having just watched the original trilogy again, Luke was also a whiny teenager.
Yeah, he really was, and there are lots of parallels actually, and probably made on purpose, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, Ewan McGregor studied Alec Guinness's performance to do Obi-Wan, and I'm sure that Hayden Christensen watched the original trilogy to kind of mirror Luke.
Yeah, that's probably right. And talking about Luke, you think you're ready to go to the original movies?
Yeah.
Okay. So
they're so good.
Yeah, they're really good. And one of my favorite parts that I cannot ever forget is when Luke is training with Yoda.
Yeah,
I love that. The freaky Yoda that it seems like some homeless guy on a random planet, and then it turns out to be a Jedi Master. I always love that scene with that Luke is carrying Yoda on his back. You know.
Yeah. It's a classic archetype of the wise master who's pretending to not be, essentially.
Yeah.
To test Luke's patience. I don't know. It's awesome. I really like the cave scene. I think that's probably the strongest scene for me in Empire.
Okay.
Or at least it's tied for it.
It's a really good scene. So, and I believe that scene has lots of parallels. I believe with Episode 8, right?
Yeah, with Rey.
Yeah, with Rey. I actually, when I was watching those scenes with Rey, I was always coming back to that scene. So, I'm going to assume that it was made on purpose.
I'm sure.
Darth Vader's enemies to
I think that what's that thing? It's a skipping. Never mind.
Yeah, it's for skipping.
Part of the hero's journey is to face the shadow within himself. Like you have to understand that you're capable of great evil in order to wield your power for great goodness, and that's what the caves are about. I think that's a metaphor for it.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a few problems with Rey in the 8th movie about the cave when she falls into that hole, you know, because I didn't really understand the meaning. You did have a good explanation in your head of what you might think about it. So actually, now that we're talking about caves, do you want to?
What Rey's scene?
Yeah, the one with the lots of rays and.
Yeah. So the way I took that scene was So as Luke was confronting the evil in himself, that he might be like Vader, Rey was confronting the fact that she has to find who she is. I mean, her quest, she went into the cave to find her parents. That's what was calling her. But she only found herself.
True.
And I think the lesson that she had to learn is that it doesn't matter who her parents are, she's there. And she has a place in the Resistance, and the constant images of her were a reflection of that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter where you came from. The future is yours and yours alone. You are going to decide who you're going to be. So in a way, I really love that. But let's... I know that I'm jumping all around these things, but probably we should stick... Let's go back to the original movies, and we'll talk about Rey and what we feel about the sequel movies.
So what the original movies had was this guy right here. The battery droid, Gronk. Yeah, I liked that the original trilogy, with its low budget, even the first movie with its really low budget, had a tremendous amount of variety with the different life forms that they had. You had the Jawa Walker, where it shows this guy, and so many different things, and they don't explain what they're for. They're just there, and they're in the universe. They're doing the world building.
They're doing whatever they're meant to be doing, and I don't believe that for good world building you need to explain every single thing, because it's like real life. Imagine, for us it's completely normal, lots of things that imagine someone out of our world, they wouldn't probably make sense of it. But the thing is, even if they were watching us on TV, we wouldn't turn ourselves to our friend and say, oh, this is this thing and it does this.
Right.
Because for us it's normal and we know what it is. I don't need to explain to everyone what it does because everyone else knows what it is.
Exactly. And Mos Eisley, I mean the cantina scene. The reason that scene is so loved by fans is because like you just go in here and you see a bunch of fucking weird looking creatures doing their thing, they're speaking weird languages. You're really showing that you're in a different universe.
They're going on doing their regular life. And that's something that you gotta appreciate in video games, in world building, because it's what they would do in real life, you know?
Yeah.
It's not like they need to explain what they're doing, because you wouldn't explain to your friends why you're with them in a bar.
Right, it's show not tell.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I really love about in world building. And when it's not done right, it really breaks the immersion that you have in what you're watching.
Yeah, and so I think that's Lucas's strength, as I've mentioned before, or and Lucasfilms as it was, the whole team, even down to like the different kinds of armor, the security guards on the cruiser on the first scene.
Yeah,
I mean it's everything has a purpose, and they fashioned that stuff from like a bunch of junk. They had no money to make the movie.
Actually, you're talking about that. I actually had no idea that for the prequel movies the prequel movies they probably already had some budget, right?
Oh, for the prequels they had a lot of money.
Yeah.
But for the original trilogy, especially A New Hope, I mean, if you rewatch A New Hope, I recommend Harmy's despecialized edition, where it's the closest you can get to the theatrical version. It's a campy movie, man. I mean, they did a lot with not a lot of money, and it's really impressive. The sets.
I mean, I watched the first episode a long time ago. I mean, when I watched it, it was long before it had already gained the subtitle A New Hope.
Right.
It's probably kind of weird actually to the people that originally saw the movie, because they knew it as Star Wars.
Right. It's just Star Wars.
Yeah.
And then it was, The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. What's your favorite from the original trilogy?
The original trilogy. I don't really know. I mean, I actually enjoyed the Empire Strikes Back more than most. I believe it's actually one of the least liked movies from the original trilogy.
You think so? It's for sure my favorite.
Oh, it is your favorite. I actually felt that from the original trilogy, it's one of the least favorite. I'm not saying that people don't like it. But I have this idea that it's not the favorite from people.
I think in the US at least, it's regarded as the best.
Oh, I actually did not know that, because I really love the movie. So maybe, okay, that makes a bit more sense then. I love the movie and other people feel that way
It had the introduction to Boba Fett.
Okay.
I don't know. It was very cool. It was you got to see Vader expand as a character.
Dude, I love that all the whole Vader character. It's not. I wouldn't say it's explanation, but you get to know the character way better.
Yeah, and you have the reveal, of course.
Yeah, the reveal. That scene, it's so good, that it even turned into a meme. But if you watch the movie and you see that scene, you don't really. Even after all these memes that were made about it, at least for me, it still has a great impact. It's not like I'm watching that and I'm going to laugh. I watch it and I feel in a way Luke, because Luke is so damn screwed up in that time. Right. I mean, he just lost his hand, and not only that, he's getting the reveal that
he just lost his friend.
Yeah, he lost his friend, and not only that, he gets the enemy that he's been fighting the whole time turns out to be his own father.
Yeah.
That and then dealing with the fact that you might turn into your father, it's so good. I love that whole arc around the character.
I think that's a really good point about the memes. So people might know that the prequels have kind of become famous for their quotable lines, especially on our prequel memes on Reddit. And so when you rewatch a really dramatic scene like the final fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan, if you're aware if you're aware of the memes, it takes away from the movie a little bit, because it's like, oh, haha, the Jedi are evil from my point of view, the Jedi are evil, blah blah blah. But if you rewatch the original trilogy and Luke, when he screams no, no matter how much it's been quoted and memed on, it's still powerful, like you say.
And I'll be honest, even after all these memes, the final battle from the prequels, it's one of my favorite battles from the whole Star Wars universe.
Between Vader and Luke?
No, I'm saying the prequels. Obi-Wan versus Anakin. It might be memeable as it is, but I really love that fight. Mm-hmm. It's so good, and the Anakin and Obi-Wan, you feel the actors, they're really trying. I mean, like you said before, the lines can be really weird, but they try their best to deliver it as best as they can.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, I loved all the fights that are important from the original movies as well. They're really so good. And the final battle between Luke, it's not all that of a battle, but the battle with Darth Vader, and then where Palpatine is involved.
Right.
I love that whole scene as well. And I know that it was kind of shoehorned in, the fact that you were supposed to defeat the Sith, not join them, and it actually turns out that Vader is the one to kill Palpatine. Yeah. So
what do you make of the prophecy?
I mean, since when I originally watched them knowing about the prophecy from the get-go, so for me it wasn't as bad. But I can totally understand people complaining about it, because it wasn't originally a prophecy, and then it was shoehorned in, like I already mentioned. But for me personally, I don't really mind that much.
But like an in-universe explanation, do you think that Luke was the chosen one or Anakin?
I mean, supposedly Anakin was the chosen one. But I do see as Luke being the one. I mean, it does carry his blood, so in a way it would make sense for me that Luke is the chosen one. But the truth is, Anakin was the one to deliver the final blow.
Right.
So I can't really say for certain. What do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, spoilers, I think it's Anakin. But I don't know exactly what they mean by bring balance to the Force. Because he killed Palpatine, which is good for, political balance. But I don't know what it meant, bring balance to the Force. Bringing balance to the Force, I think, would have been to reform the Jedi Order to something that we call it Grey Jedi Order.
Oh.
To eradicate the Sith and to eradicate, really, the Jedi as well, as they currently are. And Anakin didn't do that, but Luke did in the old universe, in the old EU.
Uh-huh. Sadly, I don't really know a whole lot of the expanded universe.
Mhm.
I would actually want to read a lot about it, but I think there's so many things that it's available that I wouldn't know where to start.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot.
And sadly, since it's not canon anymore, I think that lots of people wouldn't even want to invest your time in it because, well, it's not canon.
But, you know, canon is what you make of it.
Yeah.
About just enjoying the media. And now, I'm sure the books will be on a discounted rate.
True, that's true. But The Great Jedi is actually something that I want to touch upon when we start talking about the sequels, because I do believe that was a great opportunity. But up until this point, it's just a missed opportunity at that.
Alright, so favorite character from the original trilogy and why?
I mean, this is probably a given, and lots of people would choose the same as me, but I really love Han Solo, the way that he was portrayed. He's snarky, he's cocky, and in the end of the day, I believe that the character is really so important to the universe that if it wasn't for him, Luke wouldn't even get where he was. In a way, I believe that he was one of the most important characters alongside Luke. And Leia was, of course, really important as well, but I actually believe that Han was a bit more than Leia was.
Yeah, well, for one thing, he wouldn't have blown up the Death Star
True.
if it weren't for Han.
Well, yeah, and that's one thing that we're going to talk about when we're talking the sequels. I actually think that Rogue One should be part of the sequel. I mean, they have a...
They're a prequel, technically.
Yeah, that's a prequel, but they were made in the current age.
Yes.
They do have a name that you talked... last time I forgot how they're mentioned as.
The anthology series.
Yeah, anthology series.
I'm going to call it a prequel, though, for two reasons. One, because I like it, and I don't like the sequels, but I do like the prequels, so I'm going to put it in there. And two, it is a prequel. It's a prequel to number 4.
Yeah, that's true. Do you have anything else to add to the original movies, or can we go?
My favorite's Darth Vader. It's pretty obvious why. He's the ultimate villain. Everything he does is all about power moves, and he's good at the execution of it. And he's just so damn cool.
Yeah, Darth Vader is actually really cool. Design-wise, I mean, you look at that character and you feel its menacing power.
Yeah.
You know?
And of course, like the helmet design from, I believe it was Samurai. I mean, it just looks so cool.
Yeah, now that you think about it, it really looks like it was inspired by samurais.
Yeah, a lot of Lucas's stuff for the original trilogy was inspired by Japanese movies. I read that a bunch. I'm not sure where. Don't quote me.
Okay, but it does make a bit of sense, at least design-wise, for Star Wars, Darth Vader. But anything else you want to add?
Rewatch, download Harmy's Despecialized Edition. It's way better than the Special Edition.
That's a fan-made version?
Yeah, by a lot of people work together, especially a guy named Harmy, to do that. There's a nice documentary on YouTube on it, if you're interested. I think it's the best Star Wars viewing experience, at least in my opinion.
Okay. I actually should check that out. I'm in need of rewatching those movies again, so I might actually do that. Is that the version that removes episode 1?
No, this is just the original trilogy.
Oh.
It removes the special edition portion.
Oh, the one that shot first?
Right, so I mean it reverses all of the changes that Lucas made since theatrical release. Like takes out the CGI he put in, it changes the edits that were made to the sequencing. It reverses the weird color correction that made everything look magenta when there were red lightsabers. I mean, it's the theatrical release.
Oh, okay. I actually did not know that people went through the work of doing that.
Oh, I can't recommend this documentary enough. They put a lot of effort into making that happen. Okay,
so here's a tip from Josh. If you want to enjoy the original movies to their fullest potential, you should actually watch this one.
Yeah, they didn't pay me, by the way.
But yeah, now that we're done with the original movies, let's talk about the sequels. After the sequels, we'll talk about the anthology. Since we both only watched the Rogue One, we didn't even watch the Han Solo.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about the sequels.
Well, what do you think of the Force Awakens?
I didn't feel like it was a horrible movie, but it was a. What I originally said was I felt like the Force Awakens was a movie made for the original fans. So when I say this, is basically if you watch that movie, it feels in a way that they tried to put in the plot from the original 3 movies. So you have a big Death Star, you have lots of scenes that are reminiscing of the originals. So in a way, I felt like they made it so that they could get rid of all the original tropes, and in episode 8 they could start by doing something completely original. So that's why I in a way enjoyed the first episode of the sequels. But of course there's a lot of things that I didn't really enjoy, but in overall experience it was pretty solid for me.
Okay. And so you liked the characters and the way the plot was going?
I did enjoy Rey to a certain extent. I didn't really like Finn for some reason. I felt like his character wasn't as good. I mean, he does have a few developments that are really good for his character, but most of the movie I wasn't really feeling it. Overall, I felt like the characters were okay. Not the best that they could have been, but as a Star Wars movie and for entertainment value, I believe that they were just fine. When we start to talk about episode 8, however, it changes quite a bit.
Right. So I immediately resented episode 7 because of Disney and how they destroyed my EU.
Okay, I can understand that.
What happened after episode 6 in the original EU was completely different. It was a good story with Luke and his wife Mara Jade and the new and the new Jedi Temple, and I thought it was a nice story, and it's a shame. It's a shame that all of that went away. So I was immediately put off going in to the new movies. I liked Rey for the first half of the movie. I think that her development, like her initial introduction, was brilliant. It was showing, not telling, and you really fell for her. She was trapped on Jakku. And then as soon as things got going, she just became like this unstoppable machine.
Yeah, that's one thing. Rey, for some reason, she has some plot device there that makes her all-powerful. It didn't feel like it was a gradual thing. Like I felt with Luke that he trained and he got good.
Luke failed a lot.
Yeah, he failed a lot. Rey,
like a lot.
But Rey, she's like, oh, look at me, I can do this now, and I'm powerful as all hell.
There were fan theories that thought, well, look, if she's a Skywalker, then each Skywalker has been getting progressively stronger. Anakin had to train since he was a kid. Luke had to train since he was a young adult. Rey didn't have to train at all. You know, maybe the bloodline is just getting stronger and stronger. But she's not a Skywalker.
Yeah.
She's also, you know, we don't know where she came from. So maybe there's an explanation to be put, but I don't think they're going to explain that.
Yeah, I'm not really thinking about that as well.
But even if there's an explanation, it's like, oh, she's descended from blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Because you shouldn't have a protagonist that's automatically better.
I do understand that bloodlines could make you a bit stronger, but not to the extent that she is.
Yeah.
I can. For me, it's just fine that Luke was stronger in a way since he started his training way later. But Rey, I don't think that's an excuse. We can actually jump now to episode 8.
Okay, well, I want to touch something about Finn.
Oh, okay. Talk about Finn.
So I thought Finn in episode 7 was very likable, but his character didn't make sense. So he was basically Hitler Youth. I mean, they're kidnapped from a young age, they're indoctrinated, and the only life they know is as a stormtrooper. Now, it's very possible and also awesome that someone could have the moral acuity to be raised that way and still say, no, you know, I don't accept this. This isn't for me. But he flipped on a dime so quickly once he got to the Resistance, where he was killing his former brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
I don't know, it doesn't seem very real. Also, Well, going to episode 8, wasn't he not a pilot before, and then he was suddenly a pilot?
Yeah, in the end of episode 7, I believe that he says something that I never piloted before. I don't know how to pilot.
And he needed Poe Dameron at the beginning.
And then in the next movie, just a few days before, I believe it, I don't think in universe it jumped that much.
No, it was very quick.
So basically,
and he was
knows
unconscious.
And he knows how to pilot, and he's like, "Woohoo! I'm doing all these things here." Especially in the end of the movie.
Yeah, so it's not just Rey who's like super powerful for no reason.
Yeah.
Also, Poe is like a hyped up on steroids Han Solo.
Yeah, I do like Poe, but I don't like it to the extent as I see other people online liking him.
He's alright.
Yeah, he was alright, and I did like the scene in the 8th movie that he tried to do the uprising on the ship, but that all could have been avoided if that woman actually just explained her plan instead of looking like a stupid person and making people actually get hurt just because he was trying to do what was best for the whole crew.
Yeah, and the light speed. Alright, so the light speed attack. Very cool. In the moment, it was so cool. I mentioned last time, I actually gasped. I thought it was awesome. It filled me with wonder. And that's what a Star Wars movie should do. But then when you think about it, it breaks the canon. You can't use light speed as a weapon like that. It's been established that when you enter light speed, when you're going through, and something gets in the way, you just crash and blow up. That's how it was always in the old EU, and that's how Rogue One also portrayed it before The Last Jedi came out. So suddenly you have a different way that lightspeed can be used, which then raises the question, well, why doesn't everyone use this all the time?
Yeah.
Why don't you have unmanned ships jumping to lightspeed at the Death Star?
Yeah, that's quite true. I actually did not think about that before Josh mentioning this last time that we talked about this. So it's a really it makes you really enjoy that moment. But just like many things that happen in episode 8, after you start thinking about them, it just goes to the shitter.
Yeah, and they say like, let the past die. Let the past die. Have you seen my girlfriend Rey? Yes, he wanted to do something new, but he just disrespected the canon and the characters, and that's not a way to make something new. That's just a way to alienate your fan base.
And talking about Kylo Ren, one thing that I really despised about the character in episode 8 was that in episode 7 he was built up with that thing. He really appreciated his grandfather, and he wanted to keep on doing it and finish what he started.
Granddaddy, please.
Yeah. So when they go basically in episode 8, and now I forgot the name of that guy, the main villain,
Snoke.
Snoke, yeah, exactly. When he turns himself to Kylo Ren and is like, huh, "You still playing those games with that stupid mask?" And he gets so annoyed and so pissed, and just like that, he smashes the helmet, and he never touches on that subject ever again.
Right.
And that's something that I really did not like, because it felt like his whole purpose changed from a second to another. And I do get the idea of letting the past die, and I do understand it, and I do appreciate it, but not as fast as it happened.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a movie, they got times to be wary of, but I felt like it was way too fast even for a movie.
Yeah, and even if he did smash the helmet, out of anger and blah, 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 you'd think he'd come back to it. Because in real life, when you have a deep psychological issue and you have an epiphany about this issue, it doesn't just go away immediately. It's still there.
Yeah.
Even if you know that you need to fix it. Also, I'm lost.
I think you actually need to go back to that room. I'm not entirely sure, but probably there's some kind of switch that you need to use your force grip.
Force grip.
Probably to the left. From yeah, I believe that it's on the other side of that force field.
All right, I'll figure it out.
It's back. Left now. Change. Move the camera. And probably you need to pick.
Oh, this thing here.
Yeah, it just hit the microphone.
Told you I'm bad at video games.
It's not your fault. We're actually talking while you're playing, so that really can make you not play as well because you're not focused on it 100%.
Oh man, this is what Let's Players have to deal with.
Sometimes you can get kind of distracted and your thought process won't really help.
Yeah.
You're like trying to think what you want to say, but you're trying to stay focused on the game. And also depending on the time and how your day was, there's lots of factors and you'll probably just be like brain dead while doing lots of things.
But, so I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I heard that you really love the character of Rose and the arc with her and Finn.
Rose. So, I don't mind the character Rose when she was introduced, but I really did not like the fact that she was in love with Finn by the end of the movie, because in movie time, I think it was like, I don't think even a week passed.
Wait, I think it was a matter of like 2 days.
Yeah, something like that. It was so quick that it doesn't make sense that she fell in love with him. And the thing is, by she saying that she's in love with him, and I don't really know if Finn retributed, I don't really remember.
He did that thing where someone kisses you and you just don't react.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, it kind of depends, but I felt in a way that his purpose is complete. He doesn't have any more objectives to do.
Oh yeah, they didn't know what to do with Finn.
Yeah, Finn was just... And the whole casino scene, it was so unnecessary in my point of view. It didn't add anything, basically, and in the end of the day, I felt like it was just a waste of time.
Well, okay, so like, you know how we were just sucking the dick of the concept of world building earlier?
Yeah.
7 and 8 don't do good world building. All the worlds are very small, and the aliens that they introduce are, one, they have nothing to do with the Star Wars universe, only some characters that were grandfathered in. But also the aliens that they reproduce all look samey and they're not memorable. The casino scene is a good way to show this off because it was supposed to be, or I would have thought it was supposed to be, kind of something like Mos Eisley, where you see all of these different alien races and peoples doing the stuff that they're doing. I can't remember a single species. Like, nothing clearly in my mind,
yeah,
except for that like joke alien that was singing when something was crashing.
Not even that I can remember correctly.
It was like the opera singer alien, and I just remember her because it was really out of place and cringy.
Yeah, sadly I felt like that whole scene and the scene that they're running on those animals that I don't even know what they are.
Yeah, it was kind of like that Avatar effect. I mean, blue people Avatar, where it was like, ah, yes, it's very good to be nice to animals. It's like, well, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of true. It's good to be nice to animals, but I don't feel like Star Wars is the best movie for you to put that in, at least in that way.
So I have a point we didn't talk about before. Star Wars as a franchise is inherently political, but in a very abstract way. What makes the original trilogy plot and the prequel trilogy plot great is because they can be applied to political situations all the time.
Yeah.
If you watch the original trilogy now, you can see the imperialism of the Empire in light of, you know, what's going on with the neo-colonialism, if you want to interpret it that way. Or you can interpret it as like the Vietnam War, which is kind of, I think, what Lucas was going for and inspired by. And then the prequel trilogy is about, you know, how democracies can fail and ways to prevent that. The sequel trilogy is touching on really current, contemporary political issues about, like, the 1%. And while you can make that more abstract, it felt like it was very, very directly political in the ways that it's not timeless, it's going to be dated. And the original trilogy and the prequels are more universal.
Okay, so I do understand what you mean, and you're actually right. So, in a way, those movies are lots of their major part of their impact might be lost in a few years' time.
Exactly.
So that's actually something that it's kind of sad. And the movies, for example, had lots of jokes. And I did mention that before, in the last time that we talked about this, is that lots of jokes felt like they were Marvel-ish. You know, when you're watching a Marvel movie and that joke just shows up and you want to laugh about it because it's a funny joke and it does make sense in universe for it to be like that.
Right.
But when it transitions to Star Wars, it didn't really hit the mark. For example, the scene that Luke throws his lightsaber away when Rey gives it to him, and the part that he drinks the milk, that green milk out of that space Calterius, I didn't really feel like it was a funny moment. I might have chuckled, but I'm like, this isn't Star Wars. If this was in a Marvel movie, it would be just fine, but in this case, I'm not really feeling it.
You know, I think that Star Wars was always goofy. I mean, there were a lot of jokes. I think what separates the sequels is just they weren't as good jokes.
That might be it. Maybe the jokes are forced in a way that it didn't feel like Star Wars for me.
Like, you have a boyfriend? You have a cute boyfriend? Like that line from Finn?
I didn't even remember that. So if you go to the originals and the prequels, there are lots of lines that I will remember. But from the sequels, I don't remember. I barely any lines. And it's possible that it was because I only saw those movies once.
Yeah.
But barely I have any memorable parts of those movies, sadly. There are a few ones that, like the final battle from Episode 8, that I really enjoyed. But then, when we found out that Luke is a projection, it kind of destroyed a bit of the impact that it had. I mean, force projection is really nice, and I really like it. But in that part of the movie, when he was trying to be all badass, I felt like it did destroy a bit of the impact for me. Not all, but a little bit. And then Luke dies, and I always had this idea that he was going to die, but I felt like it was a weird way to die.
Yeah, I actually don't have a strong opinion about his death. I don't know whether I like it, which I guess is already an answer that I don't like it.
Okay.
But I don't have a strong hatred for it. I mean, it was the very last scene. Uh-oh.
It's a motor, a moto.
The very last scene I think was beautiful.
I did like the very last scene.
You know, when he falls, but then of course they fucked up and his hand didn't drop.
Oh yeah, that actually should have dropped. It's not a real hand, it's a fake one.
Yeah, and as far as I understand, they admitted that it was just a mess up.
Oh crap, that's even worse.
Yeah. At least they didn't try and justify it.
Yeah. Well, when it releases on Blu-ray, that might have been fixed.
The special edition of episode 8. Yeah.
Well, I believe that. Oh, one last thing that I wanted to talk about. Moving on, Grey Jedi's. I actually always thought that Rey and Kylo Ren would join up, and instead being a Jedi and what are they called nowadays? It's not a Sith, is it? It's still a Sith Lord.
They're just a dark Force user.
Yeah. Basically, I thought that they were going to join up forces and turn out to be Grey Jedi's, and that's the true balance of the Force. And I actually really wanted to see that happen. And there were lots of things that were touched upon in the first movie, like the Knights of Ren, that I thought they were going to be explained in episode 8 or 9. But by the way that they didn't talk about it in episode 8, I feel like it's getting way too late for them to be introduced in the last movie, that we're going to assume that it's a trilogy, like it has been up until this point.
Yeah.
So in a way I felt really sad about those things.
Yeah, they had potential. I think that's really a good way to summarize both. You know, to be fair, both the prequels and the sequels there's such potential. They had such potential. The prequels didn't fully realize it for the reasons we talked about, and the sequels more so. And I don't know why. I mean, I guess it's because it's Disney, and Disney's a soulless machine that's just going to appeal to the lowest common denominator to make the most money. But they did do Rogue One, so, you know, you have to have faith that they're going to put out some good movies.
And talking on that note, if you don't have anything else to add on the sequels, we could move to Rogue One. That's the only one that we saw from the anthologies.
Okay, Rogue One's so fucking awesome.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Rogue One, and I believe that the major problem that I had with it, and probably only one, was that since it had so many characters to introduce, I felt like none of them was truly fleshed out. And that's the only problem that I had with it, because everything else was so amazing. to the detail that they even explained how the Death Star was so easily destroyed. I loved that detail.
And that's great that they have the in-universe explanation for that.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a reason back then. It was just a stupid way to destroy the Death Star. But all these years later, they finding a reason to explain that. That's one of the things that I love the most.
Yeah, that was really cool. I can agree about the characters. Although I really did like, I don't even remember their names.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't remember their names.
But the monk guy and his friend.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, they were really cool. But I guess I don't like Star Wars as much for the characters, but more so for those scenes, the space fight in Rogue One. They even brought back Red Leader. They used unused footage of him from Episode 4 and had him right there, the real Red Leader.
Yeah, you actually mentioned that. That's actually pretty cool.
Blue Leader, you know, it was all very, I guess you could say it's nostalgic, but it just felt very Star Wars. But better. I mean, they improved upon it. They made interesting tactics with the Hammerhead Cruiser, and I don't know. It was just awesome.
I loved basically everything, since the actors to how they were portrayed in the movie. I actually loved it all. And yeah, like I said, I love the details that they added to the movie to justify past things. And in general, I actually think it's a really good Star Wars movie.
Yeah, it's a good Star Wars movie. It's a good addition. And God, the Vader scene.
Oh yeah,
the Vader scene at the end.
That's the thing that I wanted to touch last. It's basically that scene at the end, and even though they had the CG Leia, it was kind of weird. But that aside, I loved that scene, and
it made me so happy.
It was just basically pure joy seeing Darth Vader destroying all those people.
Yep, in his prime. I mean, like, well, not quite prime, but you see him really strong as Darth Vader, the scary demon villain that struck fear into the rebels. I mean, God, it was awesome.
And speaking about Leia, the only thing that I have to say here is that probably she should have died in that scene that she was sent into space in Episode 8, and that's the only thing that I want to say about that, because that thing just triggers me a lot.
She probably should have died. It's a shame that Carrie Fisher died, because I'm sure they had a plan. I mean, they had her survive for a reason. She was going to play some pivotal role in 9, but now she can't. So now they're stuck.
Yeah, I have no idea how they're going to fix that, and I feel like doing an off-screen death would be the worst decision.
Yeah.
Because she's such a pivotal character.
You mean like they did for Admiral Akbar, the most pivotal and important character in the entire series?
We don't talk about that over here, okay? We don't talk about that because he deserved better.
He did. For Akbar.
I mean, he's more of a mean character than
anything.
No,
he is pivotal. He is important.
But
listen, I had an Admiral Akbar figurine as a kid.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that he was that big of a deal.
The Mon Calamari, man, they're the best starship generals. An off-screen death, really, Disney?
He deserved. But I actually believe that if he was the one to do the suicide scene in Episode 8, it would have been such a fitting end to him.
It would have been way better
than a random girl.
You know, Admiral Akbar, and the thing is, it was a trap to let Disney buy them.
Oh boy, yeah, but I do, like I said, I do feel like it would be way better that he was the one to do the suicide scene, because that character that was introduced, I felt like she wasn't a good character.
She was a terrible character.
It's not the actress, it's just the character itself. It wasn't well written.
Apparently, the actress is really awesome.
Yeah,
I looked up her IMDb.
Yeah, I do believe it's really awesome. I just felt like it wasn't well portrayed as a character, and dialogue-wise, I felt like it was just she was put in the movie just to die, and that's the only purpose that the character had in that movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, anyways, do you have anything else to add into this conversation, or can we end it here?
Smash that like button.
Okay, that's a really good way of thinking.
Well, let's see. I guess I want to give Disney more of a chance because it's Star Wars and I'm forced to, but I'm very pessimistic. I'm hoping for the new EU to fill in the gaps. Some of the books have been really good, like Tarkin. And yeah, it was fun to play and fail at this game. Not bad for my first time.
No, not like this. You always have to bring up that dead meme. Well, anyhow, I believe that this is... We touched upon most of the things that we wanted to talk about Star Wars. We won't be talking about Han Solo, the Solo movie, I think that's the name, because neither of us has watched it yet. And I don't actually believe that you want to watch it in the cinemas, right?
No, I can't be hurt again. Not so soon. I need some time to recover.
I feel you. But yeah, once we watch a movie, eventually it will happen. We can revise this talk and talk about that movie, either it being good or bad. I don't really have a strong opinion about it. I have no idea. But I'm hoping in a way that it's a good movie. Let's hope.
Yeah.
Well,
Hope
anyways.
springs eternal.
Exactly. And yeah, that's it. I believe that we're set to episode 9, even though I really have no idea how they're going to pull that off. They only finished the movie with kids having force powers and being the hope for the future. Are they going to jump 10 years into the future just to make those kids have any meaning into the story, or they're going to forget about that?
That's how they could kill Leia off screen.
Yeah, they actually could jump a few years and explain it. I mean, it wouldn't be the best solution, but it wouldn't be the worst. But anyways, are we done?
We're done.
Well, I really hope you guys enjoyed. It was a more of a podcast video, I mean. It's kind of experimental. If you guys like this, we might do this a few more times. It's fun talking with people that enjoy the same things that you do. So yeah, with that said, we'll be seeing each other next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. Portugal was cool.